Hey all, welcome to Parker's Reef. On today's episode, we're going to check out the Marine Monitor from Hanna, a device that can continuously monitor pH, salinity, and temperature in your reef tank. Alright guys, thank you for joining me on another episode of Parker's Reef, and as touched on in the intro, today we're checking out the brand new device from Hanna Instruments, their Marine Monitor. And those of you who follow my channel fairly closely will know that I am a fairly tough critic on Hanna, and today should be no different because this is not a sponsored video whatsoever. It's not paid, it's not promoted, anything like that. My local fish shop, Deer Park Aquarium, have been more than kind enough to loan me this device so that I can do a completely unbiased review on it and let you guys out there know exactly what my thoughts on it are. And I'm curious to see, because it has a few pros and a couple of cons just from looking at the box. First of all, it's $550 Australian, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you compare what this device can do to some of its competitors out there, it starts to look quite cheap. Now, those things that I talk about are salinity continuous monitoring, pH continuous monitoring, and then I guess temperature's kind of thrown in the mix just as a bit of a freebie. But if you were to try and do those first two parameters, pH or salinity, on any other brand out there, it's going to cost you more than this device on its own. You're talking something like a Neptune Apex, a GHL, maybe even the Reef Factory Salinity Guardian or pH monitor, all come in around this price or above this price for each individual element. Now, this can do all three and do it continuously. The only downside is those other devices I talked about that do cost more money are internet connected and can send you push notifications, or even in some instances control other devices should any of those parameters get outside of the range you like. Where this device here from Hanna, the Marine Monitor, the only thing it can do is trigger an audible alarm, which we'll have a look and see if there's something we can do about that later down the track. But that would have to be the biggest downside I have of this device. Some of the other upsides I can see is that it is continuous duty. It does continually read those parameters for you, so it's not something you have to get a test kit out or put something in the water to measure. All you have to do is open up your cabinet door, or depending on where you mount the display, just have a glance and you can see if everything is on track. Or of course, if you're not getting an audible alarm, you can assume that everything is okay. But I guess we're probably at the stage now where we should rip open the box, see what you get in the pack for $550 Australian. I'll then set it up on my frag tank, we'll let it run for a few days, and I'll give you my opinion on whether I think this device has a use case for people out there or not. Let's get into it. Alright, here is the device itself. You can see the nice big backlit display it looks like there. It shows you the pH at the top, your salinity in the middle, and your temperature down the bottom. We've also got some extra things there to let us know when we're calibrating and whatnot. Some of the values or the benefits on the box here are a little bit duplicated, I think. We've got two operating modes. We've got a high value and low value for each parameter. I'm not sure if that means we're going to get an alarm if it goes outside of the range, if it's too high or too low, or if it can do too high and too low, I'm not sure. We've got the high-low default alarm system generated. Yeah, that's kind of saying what the first point does. The acoustic signal generated each time an alarm is triggered. Yep, that's our alarm, that's the speaker. Then we've got automatic temperature compensation, which is good, but I would expect that any device measuring salinity would have a temperature compensation. pH may benefit from that as well, I'm not sure. All readings are compensated for variations in temperature. Yep, that's the first point. Temperature is displayed in Celsius or Fahrenheit, I would expect as much, along with pH or electric conductivity reading. Wow, that's a mouthful. The EC probe contains an integral temperature sensor that simplifies the installation. Bonus, and easy to read LCD display. So nothing groundbreaking on the box there, but let's open this device up and see what we get inside. Looks like we get some instructions there. Nice little quick reference guide, I guess. We get a little certificate here of the electrode quality, which just says that someone's measured it against a known standard. They've signed off on it, which Cyprian Peke, the engineer, has signed off. Good to know. We get an Australian power supply, always good. This one's 12 volt, 1 amp. We get obviously our main unit here, which has got some pretty healthy length cables to it. Nice big display there, nice waterproof buttons there. That's going to look pretty good on the side of a cabinet or inside a cabinet, so I like that. We get our conductivity probe here, which does ship dry. This looks like potentially part of the temperature reading, or maybe that's where the conductivity is measured from, but our conductivity probe. We get a lead for power, of course, which is handy that that runs away from the unit as well, so you don't have to have your power wherever the actual unit is mounted, which is good. We get a pH probe here, which comes in a solution, but I got to say the solution looks like it's leaked a little bit. We've got some pretty funky looking crystallization going on up there, but is a nice length lead with a very solid rubber connector on the BNC there. Always good. We get some Velcro to mount the controller, although I do probably prefer to use the screw holes on that one. We get some suction cups to mount our probes, and again, I'd probably rather use a probe holder for that, but it does the trick. And then we get a pretty solid assortment of calibration and cleaning fluids here. So we get 2 sachets of probe cleaning solution, which is always good. We get 2 sachets of pH 10.01. We get 2 sachets of pH 7.01. We get 2 sachets of conductivity 35 parts per 1,000 solution, and that's everything. So you get a good assortment of calibration and cleaning packets, which these are all available separately. You can get these from anywhere that sells the the Hanna range. You can pick up their calibration and cleaning solutions, which is good. But the device itself, I've got to say, it looks good, it feels good, nice easy installation. Looks like we've only got 4 simple screws to get into the inner workings, which we might check out a little bit later. And I do like these buttons, they've got a nice feel to them, and the device itself looks quite at home on most reef tanks, but doesn't really matter how good it looks, it matters how it performs. So I think we might jump into my fish room, we'll set this up in the frag tank and compare results to my other devices. Let's go do it. Installing the device is really pretty simple. You can use the adhesive Velcro to mount the display, but I preferred to use the screw holes to hook it up there to ensure it was not going to fall off. Then you just need to pop the 2 probes in your sump and hook up to power. Job done. Alright, so I've got the Marine Monitor all mounted up here on the inside wall of my Cade frag tank cabinet, and I've got my conductivity and pH probes in place, albeit fairly temporarily with the cables out here, but it is going to be more than adequate for the use case. Now, the instructions do tell me that the next step is to power it on and then go through the menu and set the bounds for the low limits and high limits of each of the parameters. Doesn't actually say anything about calibration at this stage, but rest assured we'll go through the calibration process just so you know what is involved. But all I really need to do now is grab this power cable here and plug him in. And see what this unit does. Okay, so straight out of the box, it's come up with a pH of 8.1 and a salinity of 1.041 specific gravity, which of course is a little bit high. Temperature appears to be correct at 25.2, and I'd say the pH is about right as well. So we're going to ignore that beeping for the time being. We're going to go into setup. And first of all, we've got temperature. We can measure that in Celsius or Fahrenheit. I'm happy with Celsius, so we'll leave that. Press down for the next one. Salinity is specific gravity. We can scroll through and change that to parts per 1,000. We can change that to PSU or specific gravity. I'm going to leave it at specific gravity. We're going to go down to backlit is on. You can turn the backlit on or the backlit display on or off. I'm going to leave it on. Down to the next one is the key beep. So every time you press a button, it can beep to let you know you have successfully pressed a button. I'm going to leave that on. The alarm sound, I'm going to leave on because we kind of want to test this unit and see if it can let us know if things get beyond the realms of what we set. And then we get to the pH high alarm is currently on. If I go across, I can set that to engaged or disengaged. That tricked me a little bit with the EN and the DIS, but it is engaged. Engaged, great. And the pH high is currently set to 8.6. So as soon as we get over 8.6, we should get an alarm. We've got pH low is engaged. It's currently set to 6.0. That sounds fair. In fact, let's raise that a little bit. Okay, so you press right to get it flashing. Once it's flashing, you should be able to press up or down. I'm going to bring that up to 7.5, then I'm going to press across, which should lock that in, and now I can press down again. We've got the salinity high, which is engaged, and that is currently set to 1.030. Let's raise that up just so we get rid of the beeping. I'm going to put that to 1.040, which is extremely high, but let's roll with that. Then we've got the salinity low alarm. It's currently set to 022. That sounds good. We've got the temperature high is engaged, it's set to 27.0. Happy with that. Temperature low is engaged and set to 23.3. Happy with that. And then we're back to temperature again. So I should be able to press left. We go back to our display, and we are still reading a salinity of 1.041, which is quite high. Looks like we may need to calibrate the device, and I'll get the instructions out and we'll go through that process right now. All right, now the instructions tell me to hit the calibration button, so I'm going to press that. Interestingly, the first time you press that turns the alarm off. Press it again. Now you can see we can calibrate the pH or the salinity. Interestingly, the instructions tell me to put both probes into the calibration fluid. So I'm going to open up this 7.0 solution. Just cut the top off that, and then I'm going to carefully just give both of these probes a little shake off so I don't bring too much of the tank water in. I'm going to sit the conductivity one in there, and now I'm going to do the same with pH. Just give it a little shake off. You can give these a little gentle wipe down with a towel or something, a bit of paper towel like that if you have laying around. All right, so I've got them both sitting in pH 7.1. I'm going to select the right button to select pH. Now it's saying 7.01, which is what I am. And that has now recorded. It's telling me to wait. Not sure how long I have to wait for, but we'll wait and see. Okay, now it's telling me to grab the 10.0 pH, so we're going to take these probes out of the 7.0. Again, we're going to give them a little shake off because we don't want to transfer that 7.0 solution across into the 10.0 fluid. I'm going to grab a 10.0 solution packet here. I'm going to cut the top off him. Now that my probes have been cleaned, I'm going to pop those into the 10.0 solution. Now we're going to say to the right. It's telling us to wait. Okay, that is saved. So our pH now is correct. You can see we're reading 10.0, which is exactly what our solution is. So that is good. We need to do the same now for our electric conductivity. So I'm going to go back into calibration. Going to go down to EC, and I'm going to press across. Now it's telling me to use the 35 parts per thousand, I should say. And it's telling me it's currently wrong, which it is because it's not in the solution yet. Cut a little bit more off that packet. I think I haven't quite, no, I've got it open, all good. All right, let's get these probes cleaned. Okay, now there's no need to put both probes in when calibrating the conductivity fluid because the temperature compensation is on the conductivity probe. So I've got that in there. You can also put that into a plastic beaker if you don't want to get any sort of interference. You've got to wait for it to finish calibrating. You see the little hourglass there flashing away and the screen saying wait. And then we're happy we've read that it's at 35 parts per thousand, or in this instance on the screen there, 1.026 specific gravity. So I'm going to pop those both back in the sump now and see how we go. As soon as I take the pH probe out, I seem to get an accurate reading of my salinity. And then if I put the pH probe back in the sump, my salinity skyrockets. Interesting.
A few minutes later.
All right, guys, I think I have found the problem that I was having with the Hanna Marine Monitor. In fact, it's actually two things that seems to be causing me trouble. Firstly, the pH probe that came with the unit just does not seem to like working at all. I'm not sure if it's defective or if there's just some sort of problem with it, but it just seemed to cause the salinity to escalate all over the place, which is super bizarre. As soon as I put that into the same water as the conductivity probe, things would go crazy, and as soon as I took it out, things were fine. Now, once I switched over to a third party, actually a Kamoa pH probe that I just had hanging about here, I put that into the tank. There was no issues with salinity at all. In fact, it worked quite fine. Now, one other thing I did notice with this unit, that made a huge difference was swapping out the power supply that the unit is running off. I did notice that the Australian power supply that came with the unit, a 12 volt DC, 1 amp power supply, was very, very lightweight and didn't feel to be of the best quality. Now you can see that the hourglass here on this power supply continually flashes. It's almost as if the unit is never quite happy that the results are stable enough, so it keeps checking. Also of interest, it's measuring 1.028, 1.027 specific gravity, when this tank is currently running 1.029 specific gravity. Now, if I swap that over to my own high quality power supply, and just before I do that, I will point out that for some unknown reason, Hanna has seemed to use a reverse polarity connector on their power supply. Typically, the outside sheath here is the negative and inside is positive. For some reason, Hanna have done it opposite. So the outside is positive and the inside is negative, which means the majority of power supplies out there will not work out of the box. You will need to customize them or buy a specific power supply with the polarity that way. But if I disconnect the factory power supply and I hook up my own high quality power supply, let's just give it a second to boot back up. And we'll see where the specific gravity reads. It starts off high, comes down, you can see the little hourglass flashing. We get to 1.029, which is where I measure the specific gravity of this tank with my digital refractometer from Milwaukee. It thinks for a second and then that hourglass will go away. Already has, it's happy with the results. So two things: the included pH probe that I got with my unit seems to be defective and throwing some sort of bizarre signal, which was affecting the specific gravity probe. And secondly, I did find the factory power supply that came with the Australian delivered units anyway to be of poor quality. When I switched over to a higher quality power supply, the device now works as expected. Alright guys, there you have it. That is my overview, unboxing, setup, calibration, and I guess also unfortunately troubleshooting for the Hanna Marine Monitor. Now, I don't want to poo-poo this entire product from this video based off a couple of teething issues I had. Whilst I think the power supply that was included in the Australian device is potentially a little bit low quality, and I don't know, I feel like it possibly should have an earth pin on it, particularly when you're doing things like electrical conductivity. Just seems like it would be a good idea. And I think I probably just got unlucky with my pH probe because it had all leaked in the package, and as soon as I put that pH probe in the sump with the conductivity probe, things went crazy. Yet either of them worked fine individually. As soon as I switched out that pH probe, things got much, much more stable. And then when I added my own power supply, the device really came into its own league. Now, I guess some of you out there are probably wondering whether, if you ignore those troubleshooting issues I had, because let's be honest, I was probably just really, really unlucky and continue my run of bad luck with Hanna products. So I guess the question is, do I think this product is suitable for you and your reef tank? Well, ultimately, only you can decide that. However, you may be surprised to hear that despite my couple of teething issues, I still highly recommend the Hanna Marine Monitor. Once I worked out those two problems, the device was rock steady and worked exactly as I would expect. Now, there are some alternatives on the market that do cost quite a bit more that will give you Wi-Fi connectivity, which allow you to view those parameters anywhere. They'll give you push notifications if it gets out of those bounds, and also in some instances give you the ability to control other devices based on those parameters. Now, if you fall into the category where that is where you want to be with your reef tank, then spend the extra money. This device is not going to do it for you. Despite the fact, if you're electronically minded, you could potentially open up the back of this and intercept the power supply to the speaker and then run some different relayed outputs off that. For the majority of us out there, if you do want to do those controls and push notifications and live viewing on your phone, I think spending the extra money is going to be better. However, if that's not your game, if that's not what you want to do, you just want to be able to open your cabinet door, have a look at your temperature, your salinity, and your pH, and also get an audible alarm when things go out of bounds, then I think this is fantastic at $550 Australian. I did see Mark Cullihan from Mr. Saltwater TV talk about putting this on a salt mixing station, and I thought that was a fantastic use case. You really don't need to do that remotely, and you don't need push notifications. You just need to see easily without having to get your refractometer out whether you need to add more salt or more RO to get your solution ready before doing a water change in your tank. Having this set up on your saltwater station would make that an absolute breeze. Whether it's worth $550 for you to do that, that is entirely up to you. And whether you need to put it on your reef tank or your frag tank or any other tank you have, again, entirely up to you. But those are my thoughts on the product. Anyway, guys, I will wrap things up there. If you've got any questions, comments, feedback, anything like that at all, if you've got any feedback on what I was doing wrong with my initial setup of my Hanna Marine monitor, I would greatly appreciate it, because it did have me pulling my hair out there for a couple of hours till I swapped those two components over, and it worked an absolute charm. If you enjoyed the video, don't be shy to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to make sure you do not miss out on any future unbiased reviews like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button in the bottom corner. Other than that, guys, till next time, stay safe, keep reefing. Cheers, bye.